And Nelson, you got it.
Yep. So just to make sure I have it all. So we got Zoe at Cooper University.
Cooper, like hanging with Mr. Cooper.
Got it. It was really,
All right, it's redirecting it, y'all.
okay. And then we got Amanda going to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And then Maureen going to Howard. Correct? Okay. And then we got Amanda going to Vanderbilt.
Oops. Yeah. It was replaying.
Maureen going to Howard.
All right. It is live.
Cool.
I could do this every time.
Yes. So welcome, guys. Welcome to the Black Kids White Coats YouTube channel and to our live series called is the Match series. We've kind of just been doing this for about a week now, and we're happy to have some very enterprising and very successful dermatology soon-to-be residents with us today. Myself, I'm Nelson Wume. I'm a fourth-year med student in Illinois, going to radiology. I'm going to introduce my co-host here, Lily. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Lily.
I'm Lily. I'm a rising fourth year, one of the co-hosts as well.
Sure, yep. So we have, like I said, several very successful soon-to-be residents in dermatology with us today. First, we have Zoe going to Cooper University. We also have Amanda. She's going to Vanderbilt University, and then we have Maureen going to Howard. So just want to start off real quick. I'll ask you guys to introduce yourselves real quick, say a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started.
Any order?
We can start with Amanda. Let's go in alphabetical order.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Onalaja. I grew up in and around Chicago, went to undergrad at NYU. Now I guess I'm a graduate as of the next 2 days from the University of Rochester. So, yeah, I'm doing my prelim back Midwest at Loyola University Medical Center, and then going to finish up dermatology at Vanderbilt.
Awesome.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem.
Being here.
I'm Maureen. I'm from Houston, Texas. I went to undergrad at University of Texas at Austin, and I'm currently in medical school at UTMB in Galveston, Texas. And so I'll be doing my prelim for my dermatology training.
Excellent.
Hey everybody, my name is Zoe Indigo. I am from Detroit. I also go to med school in Detroit at Wayne State. I'm what you call a non-traditional applicant because I took a few years between undergrad and med school. I worked as a flight attendant for a number of years for Delta Airlines. But now I have succeeded in matching into my dream specialty of dermatology. I'll do my intern year here in Detroit before heading to Philly to train at Cooper University in Camden, New Jersey. So very excited.
Yeah, you got to hook us up with that friends and family discount.
We got you. We got you. No flying right now, but after
we're all family now. Yeah, we're family now. All right, cool, excellent. Yeah, nice to know a little bit more about you guys. So we'll just dive right into questions. And I encourage you all to be as candid as possible. I know we already matched, so kind of gauge how candid you want to be. You know, it's up to you. But we have a lot of up and coming med students, pre-med people who really just love the information you give, and they value it because one, you know, we look like them, and two, you are where they want to be, right? So, you know, kind of keep that in mind as we answer the questions. So real quick, we're all kind of mentors at this point, right? So I want to ask you all, tell me about mentorship. How did you find it? How did it help you out going through the process? Any challenges you might have had finding a mentor? Amanda, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. Mentorship is incredibly important. I think especially in a field as small as dermatology, especially. I looked for mentors every place I could. I think I learned early on in medical school how important that is. I would need a mentor to kind of push me over the finish line. And I actually considered a bunch of different specialties first before I fell into dermatology. I wasn't one of those people who always knew that's what they wanted to do. So first I found mentors in neurology. That was what I was interested in. And then when I finally discovered dermatology as a career path, I found a local dermatologist who I love so much. Shout out to Dr. Nana Duffy, who kind of put me in a network with people from the University of Pennsylvania. I also met someone there from Penn when I was at an SNMA conference and just like asked her for her email. I was super nervous to do so, but asked her for her email, kept in contact with her, literally emailed her once a month. And when I decided to take a year out, because I took a year out for research between my 3rd and 4th year, I was looking for mentorship. I was looking for projects that I could jump into. And she told me she knew someone at Penn. And that's how I found Dr. Susan Taylor, who's like my forever mentor. We still keep in contact to this day. But I mean, I credit them. I credit Dr. Arletta Simmons at Vanderbilt for just pushing me through the finish line. So I think it was a team effort, really. And I'm sure there's so many other physicians and people that I've met that I can't even think to name right now, just residents that were ahead of me that also provided me mentorship, but it's super important.
Awesome. Anybody who feels conviction, go ahead and go next.
Yeah, let's keep it alphabetical. Maureen, you want to take it?
So yeah, for me, mentorship was also important, like it is for everyone. Like the first doctor in my family, and I didn't really have any dermatology contacts. So for me, I first started with students that were ahead of me. So once you determine that you want to do dermatology, finding the local people at your medical school who's going into dermatology or that matched into dermatology, they were great resources with directing me and telling me what they did, what they recommended, and what was like a good trajectory to follow. After that, I feel like finding mentors, a great way to do that is through networking. And so attending local, national, state conferences within the dermatology field. So being at the AAD conference, the Skin of Color, and any other related conferences to your specialty and to dermatology is very helpful. So you go up, you introduce yourself, or you network with the people that you're sitting with at the table with. Sometimes small little things can go a long way. And then after that, one of the last things you can do is cold call people, especially during the corona pandemic. So you can write an email introducing yourself, telling them about who you are, what your goals are, and seeing who responds, and maybe following up in a couple weeks if you haven't heard anything. Additionally, there are mentorship programs that have been set up in the recent years. One of them is the AAD mentorship program, specifically made to help increase diversity within dermatology. And then I believe also the Women Dermatology Society, WDS, also has a program that has started up. And so those are some ways to get started to help you find a mentor, and because it's really important, and it'll help you be successful on the journey.
That's a really great idea with reaching out to people right now, because I feel like
everyone's at home.
Yeah, everyone's at home. So.
Well, except some, even a lot of doctors are at home. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of dermatologists are utilizing telemedicine right now, so they'll definitely be checking their emails. So you asked, what does mentorship mean to me? To me, mentorship is almost like, applying to dermatology is almost like applying for a line of credit, right? And your mentor is your co-signer. So when you think of a mentor, you really want someone who is going to be an advocate for you, who will pick up the phone and call someone on your behalf, or, really just give it to you straight. Hey, that case report you're so excited about, we got to need a little bit more than that in order to match to where you want to go. So, I think of mentorship as two types. There's the mentor who, will go through your CV with you and, go through your research. But then there's the mentor who, you can share a little bit more of your soul with and be a little bit more personal, and who will give it to you real. So I think it's important to identify both types of mentors, especially into a field like dermatology that's so small. I think Amanda and Maureen hit the nail on the head. Conferences and networking is everything. I mean, it's almost like a pre-interview, because when they get those applications and there's hundreds of people, who are they going to remember? Who are they going to want to meet again? The person who made an impression already. So I think that's really important. The NMA is a huge underutilized resource, I think. I remember going to the conferences my first and second year and being like one of the only medical students in the rooms with these people who are already at the table making decisions behind closed doors. So, I think that was super helpful, not only in terms of resources to get into dermatology, but there's a lot of scholarship opportunities. There's a lot of money that sits on the table every year because, people don't reach out.
And
I
you
think
define what the NMA is? Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. So NMA is the National Medical Association. It originated back in the early 1900s when Black physicians were not allowed to join the American Medical Association. And since then, it's sort of been around as an inclusive environment, not just for African Americans, but all those interested in disparities in healthcare. But it is predominantly African American. It's a great way to meet mentors that way. You just got to have the nerve, you just got to walk up to someone and introduce yourself. And there's that little voice in your head that's going, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But you just, you tell it to be quiet and you just keep smiling, and people love to see it. I mean, if I had a mentee come up to me, I'm going to do everything I can to help you because, we've all been there. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you all for kind of showing him how to find a mentor. Very practical advice. So one thing I want to kind of ask, bouncing off of that is, like you said, Zoe, sometimes it could be nerve-wracking to approach mentor, and ideally you kind of want a mentor who you'll share like a very strong bond with, and ideally be very organic, right? So do you guys have any practical tips on how to kind of foster an organic relationship? Sometimes it is what it is. You just are more distant with the mentor, and it's more of like a communication via email or more distant. But anything that you guys noticed that worked with you all and your closer mentors?
We can do reverse order. I think one thing that helped for me was always sending like a little update. Like anytime I had anything happen, there's like 4 or 5 mentors that I had. Hi, just checking in. Wanted to share the good news. I just published. I just had an oral presentation. So I sort of feel like they're connected.
That's great advice.
I agree with that. I did the same thing. Anything I had an update on, whether it's getting into a program or I'm getting ready to apply, or do you have any reports for me? I sent emails like every couple months. You don't want to be overbearing, but you also don't want to do too little. And also, it's okay if you're not best friends with all of your mentors. Some of your mentors, the relationship would be very formal, and some of your mentors you will become friends with. I would accept it as it is, but make sure that you're doing your part to make sure that it grows and it continues by sending those updates and letting the relationship go like it is. And it's okay if it's not buddy-buddy. Sometimes the people that you're not super close best friends with will be one of the top ones advocating for you. And don't take it personal if you're not buddy-buddy with them, or you feel like they are with others. Don't even take it personal. Like, do your part, show up, and let it be what it is.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I definitely agree with both of these ladies. I think in the mentor-mentee relationship, there is authority on both parties to participate. And so the mentee has to be also engaged always. I mean, you're advocating just as much as they are for this relationship and for whatever it is that you want. So I would send my mentee or my mentors monthly updates. Like I said, as soon as I latch onto someone, this happened to me, or I'm just checking in, or do you have advice on this? Do you think I should be doing something more? And that was always like my biggest question. What else do you think I could be doing? Because sometimes there may be an opportunity that your mentor has heard about that you just don't know yet, and you probably haven't come top of their mind until you reach out to them. So I think that's also a good practice to develop now. And kind of as both ladies said, don't be afraid to kind of put yourself out there and ask for assistance and advocate for yourself. That's super important.
Awesome.
And I think too, no matter what position you're in right now, you can also serve as a mentor. So when you're in that position where you're being someone's mentor, you kind of see what it's like on the other side of it. It's like you're not thinking of your mentees every second, but when something pops up, you're going to pass it on to them. So the same way, your mentees can fall out of your mind, we fall out of our own mentors' mind. So just use that as sort of an example of how you can already start to give back. And sometimes my mentees will write me and I'll say, oh, that's a good reminder. Let me write my mentee. So, you know, it just all really comes full circle.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys for that. So next, I want to kind of ask y'all to rewind back a little bit. And, you know, derm is not an easy, you know, it's not an easy track, right? It's a very competitive space. Yeah, woosah, right? Y'all made it. But kind of, you know, get in the heads of students now. Let's say it's, you know, senior in college or a first year med student. At some points in the trip, in the journey, you all went through some challenges, right? You know, at risk of sounding like an interview for residency, just tell me about one of those challenges, probably the biggest one or a couple, and then how you got over it, how it's helped you, etc. And anybody can start. And whether it's like gap years, I know, you know, research years or getting in post-bac years, anything like that. Failing a test. Wow, where you guys?
I mean, there's so many challenges depending on where you are. I mean, a senior in college challenge versus a third year medical student challenge. I mean, there's a lot of different roadblocks that come up.
100%. For
you
example,
start
I
off
mean,
with any of them.
Yeah.
Right. You just kind of move on with that conversation.
Okay.
Is there anything that comes to mind, like at the top of your mind?
Let's say
I know that MCAT is a huge challenge for you know, a lot of people coming in, and I heard through the grapevine of people taking it 3 and 4 times. So I'm thinking, I'm like, these are smart people that I know who got A's in their bio class. Why are they having to take the MCAT 3 and 4 times? So I knew right then and there, I'm taking a Kaplan prep course. Like, I don't care how much it is, because it's worth the time and the money, especially if I'm gonna have to do this over and over again. So that's my biggest advice that I give to pre-med is put the money down, do a GoFundMe. You don't get your eyebrows and your hair done for a couple of months. You pay for your Kaplan course because it teaches you how to take standardized tests. And that's a skill that's going to get you through med school and beyond.
Excellent. Excellent advice.
Yeah, I guess I would echo that. It's hard for me to take myself back there because at this point it was like 6, 7 years ago.
Don't bother counting. Yeah, it's a while ago. Yeah.
So I'm sorry if it took me a while. I'm like, oh, how did I feel? But I agree with what Zoe said. I remember, I think I took a Princeton review course and I found that to be very helpful. And I think as Zoe also alluded to, finances are sometimes hard. They were hard for me. I don't know if it's still available, but sometimes calling into these review courses and letting them know, like, if you feel like you can't afford it, they were able to, I think, make some kind of discount for me. And I don't know if that's still going on, but that's something that might be helpful to a student out there that's thinking about taking these courses and can't imagine spending $2,000 on it. Some of these programs will give you some kind of discount. I feel like there are always giveaways that I hear about from like Kaplan or other review sources where we do little spontaneous giveaways. Also reach out to your friends that did get into med school. They probably have some old textbooks, some little books or whatever, some other resources that are helpful for these practice review like situations. And when I guess if I'm thinking about hardships in general, I always remember doing my best to reach out to someone who had just kind of passed the finish line. They're a very immediate resource. They can probably better than anyone who's probably 5 or 6 or 10 years out can tell you. Link up with people who are in your class who you knew did well. And I think it's hard in the early stages to learn to ask for help. I think even myself, I struggle with asking for help all the time. But this is how we start the mentor-mentee relationship. This is how we get further in our careers, is by asking for help. And so I found that every step of the way, reaching out to someone who had just done the thing that I was interested in doing and learning how they navigated it was always very helpful.
And about the giveaways and reaching out to those testing companies about discounts. And I would look out for any like New Year's sales, things else. I know medical school resources do a lot of those discounts during special times of the year. And I agree with reaching out to the people that's right ahead of you, that's done it very recently. And I struggle with MCAT because I became pre-med midway through college. So I sat down for the MCAT before I was even done completing my prerequisite classes. So MCAT is a difficulty, but
Wow.
always remember to keep that GPA as strong as you can, because it can help be a cushion to if you don't have a very competitive MCAT score, which you always want to have. But if you don't, a GPA, I think, can speak more long term about how disciplined you are, your work ethic, your abilities, because it shows if you maintain that 3.7, 3.8, 3.9 and above, it shows a lot about your work ethic and your abilities. So always
Sure.
use your GPA as a cushion, and leadership and volunteer work to make a well-rounded application when you're applying. And that's for medical school and for residency. You do the whole thing over
And beyond. Yeah, true.
Can I ask a
Awesome.
question?
Sure.
I think it's kind of related to what's been asked on the chat. We've actually had some questions come in. I don't know if we talked about, your exposure to dermatology and how early on you found interest in the field. If you guys can just talk a little bit about that.
I don't mind starting if no one else.
Go ahead.
I was one of those people who, as I kind of mentioned before, had no idea what I wanted to do in medicine before I got here. I had some ideas. I thought about family medicine for a while, switched into neurology for a long time. And through I remember talking to a fourth year when I was a first year who had just matched into derm and thinking like, what is dermatology? I had no idea, honestly. And that's a little bit of my early interest getting piqued, and then linking up with a local dermatologist in the community, and then just going from there and falling in love with the field. I also did the AAP diversity mentorship program, so that also helped a lot, where I spent 4 weeks with a dermatologist. And I think the old thought, for at least when I talk to my mentors now, they tell me that what they used to tell their mentees was that, try other things, give it time. But dermatology is competitive. I think it's getting even more competitive. And I think that idea of kind of waiting until you're like second or third or fourth year to really decide is not being as supported as it was. And so if you find an interest early on, doing everything you can, even as a first year, it seems like, I think I remember being a first year and feeling like I didn't know anything, but finding someone who's maybe that fourth year that just matched, if they have a paper that you can collaborate on, or an attending that, has a case study that you can write. We can write reports at that point. We may not know any of the pathophysiology of what's going on, but with some guidance, you can write a paper, get your name on it, boom, first publication. And it sounds easier said than done. I didn't do that. Like I said, I had no idea what I wanted to go into, but I think if you have an interest early on going with it, some schools have like a diversity interest group, finding resources through them, doing an oral presentation, just something to get your name out there, and collaboration with the field early on, I think, is what's being advocated for now.
And then also, if you can add on kind of like what you found exciting about the field, just to add on to that question. Sorry to interrupt you, Maureen.
Yeah, go ahead, Maureen.
I was gonna say that how I got introduced to dermatology, I had an interest early on, and like Amanda said, the earlier the better, because it is competitive and it does take a lot to match. Typically your first summer after first year, they give you those months off or to do something of your choosing. And I chose to do a preceptorship in dermatology. So I spent the month doing it, but that was because I knew ahead of time that I had an interest. And so I wanted to explore to see if I really did like it. And one of the things I really did like about dermatology is that it offered variety and focus at the same time that few specialties to me I felt offered. I feel like you can do surgery in one day, you can be at the microscope doing derm path, you can do cosmetic procedures, and you still get the continuity of care. And it's also a lot of visual things. You can walk into a room and kind of look at the patient and know what they're experiencing and be able to help them. And so I really enjoy all of those aspects that you could get in that field. And I'm very clinical. I like being in clinic versus inpatient on the wards. And so that was also kind of narrowed down fields for me.
Man, you just sold me. Is it too late for me to switch to derm? Radiology. No, go ahead.
So for me, early on, my first year of med school, again, you got to listen to the struggles that other people are going through so you don't have them later. So I keep hearing, man, I wish I had more time to decide. I wish I had more time. So it's like, I came in like, all right, I'm going to figure out what I want to do. And most people do a medical versus surgical route. And I said, I'm not sure which one of those I want to do. Let me shadow. So I shadowed in everything from ophthalmology to urology. And I liked a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But it was when I got to derm that I said, oh, I could do this forever. Like I wouldn't feel like I was coming to work every day because, you're excited to see your patients. Every person that walks in the room is like a puzzle that you're trying to figure out and, manage. So I also remember speaking at SNMA to one of the residents there, and, he was an ortho resident. And I asked him, how did you decide on what specialty? And he recommended this book on Amazon. It's called, go figure, How to Choose a Medical Specialty. And what it does is it takes your Myers-Briggs personality test. And as a psych major, I was super excited about that because I never get to use it. So dermatology was actually underneath my personality type. And from there, that, inspired me to shadow it. So I highly recommend that because you'll notice there are certain personalities drawn to certain fields. And, not to say you can't break the mold, but, you want to find your people. I remember going to a surgery conference and, it was very formal. It was a little stiff. And, I was even talking to a resident and she was like, you don't seem like a surgical resident. I mean, whatever that means, but, she's right. I wasn't. Versus going to a dermatology conference where, it's just like so much energy and it's just people, like 100% people. So I think just shadowing and talking and going around and, seeing for yourself is the best way to decide if it's what you want to do. Not only, but they say derm is the most competitive specialty versus neurosurgery. So I always told myself, even early on, if I decide to change my mind, I can always go to something else because if I'm competitive for dermatology, I'm competitive for all of it. So that's
Awesome.
something to keep in mind too.
Great. Real quick, can you restate the name of the book?
It's called How to Choose a Medical Specialty. You just type it in on Amazon and I can get the author to you later if you want to recap or DM, but it was a really fun book,
And also,
Awesome.
Amanda, they had a question about the program that you said you spent 4 weeks with a dermatologist.
Yeah, I think Maureen had mentioned it earlier. It's the AAD Diversity Mentorship Program. So if you go on the AAD's website, I think it's like under probably like mentorship, there's a bunch of tabs. I'm sorry, it doesn't come to my mind right now, but you can find it that way or just Google it. But I think the application runs until the end of the year. I don't know how it's gonna run now that I think a lot of schools aren't accepting, or probably any organization is accepting a student right now, but it's something to look into.
Yeah, and
I think we all did it actually. I don't know anyone who was successful who didn't do it. So.
Oh, wow. So it's a major key.
And then speaking of the aways being canceled, we do have a question about so someone like T. Mary Lowe, she said she's freaking out because, COVID and a lot of aways are being canceled. And I'm sure aways are very important for dermatology. So are there things that you would suggest that applicants can do right now? I know it's I feel like it's a question where we have to predict what is going on with COVID, which is hard to say, but I don't know if you guys have any tips or anything that you can say as of right now.
I guess to echo Maureen, I mean, now is the time to put in some work behind the scenes. If you can email someone, you get the lit search going on a paper, you start reviewing the references. There's a lot of ways you can show that this is your commitment to dermatology. I think too much emphasis is placed on away rotations in dermatology. I think away rotations are excellent for a letter of recommendation, but doing an away rotation doesn't even guarantee you an interview at a program. Derm is just not like that. So I think, you away rotations don't feel like something is taken away from you. In fact, at a lot of Ivy League schools, they tell their students, don't do an away rotation. You look better on paper. It's too easy to mess up one day on a 30-day rotation. So, I say it's not necessarily to your disadvantage, but utilize this time to connect with mentors and just do the cold calling, cold emailing, and you can get a lot of work done behind the scenes, especially a resident too, because a lot of these residents are getting pulled into the emergency department and they want some help on these projects. So I wouldn't sweat too much about the away rotations.
Real quick, did you all do aways at the schools you matched at?
I did.
Nope.
So 1 out of 3. Okay.
How many aways did you guys do, if you guys don't mind me asking?
I did 2.
Okay.
I did too.
Away as well. Okay.
Do you have any in hindsight, would you have done the same number, fewer, more? I mean,
Ooh, that's a good question.
to say, yeah.
I wouldn't change too much because I match now.
Right, because you made it. Yeah, don't mess with it.
I don't know, Amanda, what do you think?
I think no. I think I would have kept. The thing is, kind of to your point about Zoe about whether or not to do away rotations. I feel like I got conflicting advice. I heard people who told me don't do them, and I heard people who said yes, do them. And typically, the people that said yes, do them were people who did aways and matched at one of their aways. I remember early on someone telling me that you're more likely to match either at your home institution or where you do aways at. And I guess that's not always the case, but it seems, I don't know, most likely from her standpoint. So yeah, I also try to be kind of strategic in my away choosing, if that makes sense, if that's even possible. I had heard about programs that typically didn't take their away rotators, and some that were more likely. And just kind of kept that in mind as well when I was trying to pick away rotations that I thought were actually going to be helpful.
The statistic shows that 50% of derm applicants that match at either at their home institution or where they did an away rotation.
Okay.
So I think what's important to look at there is where you're doing the away rotations, because all institutions are not created equal. For example, it is well known within the dermatology community, Mount Sinai, I'm calling them out, they don't really take their away rotators. If anything, they take the people who do a research year there. And I knew that, and I said, you know what, I'm still going because I got a bomb letter from, their dean there. So it's like, you got to have your expectations met. But if you tell yourself, oh, I'm doing an away rotation and I got an interview, sure, but everyone kind of knows that's their MO. So do a little research, look and see who they've taken in the past years. Reach out, email a resident. Their emails are right there. They are just people just like you. Email them, hey, did you rotate here? Did you rotate here? And you'll find the answer that matches that institution. I think that's more fair.
Sure. So real quick, you're talking about letters, right? So is there anything different or unique about the derm process, the application process, as like unique letters or unique kind of aspects to it?
I think yes, because the dermatology community is so small. So the name of your letter writer it can be very well possible that that person reading your application, even if they are in a different state, can possibly know your letter. And so I think it makes networking and name recognition and how well the person knows you very important, those letters of recommendation. I know for sure that my letter writers opened doors for me that probably wouldn't have been open because a well-known person in the field spoke so well of me. So I think it's especially important in dermatology.
And that kind of goes back to mentoring. Like if I have a good mentor, you kind of increase that web, Yeah.
Right. It can boost your application, already good application, and then having a well-respected person speak highly of you, it can really help you.
Yeah, it goes back to that co-signer thing, but also letters are also really opening doors to different regions. For example, dermatology is very regional. If you're from Michigan, you're going to get a lot of Midwestern interviews versus if you're from the East Coast, you're going to get East Coast interviews. If you're able to do an away rotation, get a letter from somebody from the West Coast, that'll open up a lot of different interviews because it's telling the program, hey, I'll come here. I want to be here and people on this, in your network like me. So it's important in that way too.
Awesome.
I actually had a question, if that's okay. Because I know you guys I didn't realize that letter of recommendations were like super strong in like the
so important
process. What other things would you say, like AOA research? I know like a lot of you guys have taken research years. There are a lot of questions in the chat about what research you did, how do you excel as a person who's doing research, and what other, like your step scores, like what other things play a role in the applicant, and then how do you become successful in that sense? Do you have any tips for that in general?
I think, and I'll jump in because I feel like we all agree on the same thing. So you guys, Maureen and Zoe, add in things where I fall back or fall off. I remember someone telling me that, like, yes, of course, the full applicant, the numbers of publications, of oral presentations, of step scores, of this or that. But at the end of the day, like, people make decisions, not just algorithms. And so that was something that I kept in mind in everything that I did. So if I'm looking for a research position, I'm like looking very hard. I'm working when other people are not working. If I get that research position, I am continuing to work just as hard as possible. I'm there early, I leave late, I don't complain. I'm there to just be, and it sounds kind of harsh in a way, but I'm there to pretty much do whatever you need and be a machine for the time that I'm working with you. And I think that was really helpful. My goal when I started my research year was to do a publication a month, and I was really close to that. I got a little sidetracked because I started working on a lot of protocols.
Wow.
But
Damn.
even, and that's just like manuscripts, right? Like some of them got published, some of them didn't. But that letter of recommendation that I got from that mentor was incredible because I worked my butt off, you know, and I think it's that little extra mile that goes a long way. So I don't know what you guys want to add in, but I think that's something to always remember. If you're working hard, work as hard as you possibly can and be honest with yourself. Sometimes we fall short and that's okay. But I think that people see that, they recognize that, and people are going to go after the person that they know is a hard worker. I mean, and just going back to what we talked about with letters of recommendation, sometimes it's not just always that piece of paper. I have had mentors tell me that people have called them on my behalf and asked, so what's the real deal with so-and-so? You know, so just keep that in mind too. Like as Zoe has said, and as Maureen has said, the field is so small. These people have each other's numbers. They're really checking in on these letters of recommendations and what people are saying about you. So just make yourself as hardworking and positive as you possibly can. I think that goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
There you have it, folks. Mic drop.
Did you have anything else to add? And then I can speak on doing a research year.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, AOA, do you need to be AOA? No. Half the people who get it are AOA, half of them aren't. So, you know, if you can get AOA, great. That's another, you know, thing to add to you. In fact, some programs sort of have like this rubric and you get like 5 points if you're AOA. So, you know, that's points closer to matching. Again, that's not every program does that, but you're going to get those points for the programs who do. Do you need to honor everything? Absolutely not. If you do, it adds to you, you know. I think honoring medicine is really important, or at least like getting a high pass in it, because that, you know, really shows them, you know, how you practice and, you know, and what might reflect a successful dermatology resident. But do you need do you need a highest step score? Do you even need that 240 that everyone's talking about? I know people who match without it. So my thing is this, you know, you do your best, because you do your best, but you don't count yourself out. And you let them tell you no. If this is what you want to do, you try for it and you do your best and you round yourself out. For every 5 step points you're down lower, you got to pick up a publication. And that's how you show them that you're the applicant that they want, regardless of these, you know, these measurements that some people think is going to keep you out of it.
Excellent. Anything else on that topic?
Regarding the research year, I would say, I will say that a research year really shows that you're committed to dermatology. And a lot of people come into your interview, why dermatology? You've done a research year, you've got plenty of why dermatology answers. Not only that, but I think doing a research year opens up the door for you, because you have to remember, not only are you competing with Ivy League applicants who, you know, have been given so many opportunities and, you know, have mentorship, but you're also competing with these MD, PhD applicants too. And, you know, it's just a different caliber. So if you look at if you have a dream program in mind, or if you're in your head and you're like, I want to do like a top 20, a top whatever program, and especially if you're coming from a mid-tier school, because I think where you go to medical school is very important, unfortunately, but it is, and it's probably going to be more important once step 1's out the way. But with all that being said, if you want to be able to have an opportunity to interview at these top places, I would highly recommend a research year. At my school, I mean, I'm telling you, 8 of us matched and we were all very competitive, you know, top scores. A few of them were AOA. They were not getting the same caliber and number of interviews for me. And a lot of it was because of my research year. I did a research year. I spent half of it at Mass General Hospital, which is Harvard's hospital, as well as the NIH. And, you know, it just opens up the doors for you. So, you know, you got to look at your goals. If you just want to match, if you don't care where, you know, it doesn't matter. Don't do a research year, you know, you'll match. But if you want the chance to aim at the highest that you can and to really, you know, have access to that table, I would recommend a research year. And I know for some applicants who they are kicking themselves because they didn't do a research year. So you got to think about it.
Excellent. So obviously you all have, go ahead, Amanda.
It's one thing.
Yeah.
Even with that point, not all research years are the same. They're just not all. I know people who did research years, not just for dermatology, but for other specialties, and didn't have a very productive year. So I think most people will look at your research year and think, were you productive? Then just, did you do a research year? So just keep that in mind too.
Sure.
Someone asked a question about, sorry, just related to the research year thing. But someone was saying, is it a plus or a disadvantage to take 1 to 2 research years before applying to, so I guess like the time length, and that kind of is related to what you just said, where it's about the quality, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Maureen, did you want to weigh in on research years?
Yeah, so like what you said, Zoe, about research years probably becoming more important with step 1 becoming pass fail, I agree with. I did not take a research year, but I must say that I had a lot of research as far as case reports and review of literatures that I did in my own free time. And so that took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to do. It was kind of like doubling third year. Third year, I really had no life because those weekends were spent doing case reports, making sure that the work that I turned in was quality and, you know, spoke well for my name. So like Amanda said, whether you do the research year or not, you will be working hard. You will be putting in a lot of work because you still need those reports. You still need to show that you're dedicated for the field, dedicated to the field. And a research year allows you to extend that over a period of time rather than stressing yourself doing third year to ace clinicals, reach out, go to conferences, stay up
letters of rec
paper. It kind of gives you a break from the school part to focus on just networking, putting your name out there, getting publications, while also being able to have a breather outside of school. So I did not want to do a research year because that research really wasn't my passion. And I didn't want to just do grunt work that year. But third year, I did have to reach out, be very proactive, find things that I was interested in, start projects on my own. It can be as simple as thinking of a topic and say, hey, I want to write about it. Like any topic that you can think of. So for example, one of the projects that me and a research fellow did was the NRMP publishes their match outcomes every year. And we said, okay, let's show what was the trend of publication and number of research projects they did over the last decade. We did it. It was very simple, mapped out the number per year, wrote up 2 or 3 paragraphs about it, and it got published to the top journal in dermatology. So it's not always things that are given to you. Sometimes you go out and make those opportunities for yourself. But so that's what you're looking at if you don't choose to do a research year. I think it's very more popular in the East Coast and the West Coast, and it's slowly permeating to the South. Like Texas is slowly, students are doing them more now, but we've gotten slow to doing them. So not many people in the South are doing those year research, but it's becoming more popular, and that's what it's looking like it's going to be like, more research years.
Excellent. So on the same topic of research, somebody wants to kind of know, is there a minimum number? Obviously, it varies, but based on what you guys know in your circles and your mentors and what they've mentioned to you and recommendations, you know, kind of what's the minimum, what's an average, what you aim for in terms of maybe manuscripts or publications or any kind of
Maureen did the legwork on this one. Let's let her answer that.
Yeah, she got the facts.
So the number that we got, So the average number of publications last year for dermatology applicants was 14. But let me explain what publication and the ERAS application, which is where you will put in your residency application. The platform is called ERAS. Publications can be anything that was submitted, accepted, or published. So even if you wrote something up and you submitted it and it hasn't yet been accepted or published, it can be listed as a publication.
Wow.
But the school will still look at the difference, what was accepted. But as far as those numbers that are reported to NRMP, if it was simply submitted, it counted as a publication. So that average number last year, it was 2018, sorry, was 14. That was the average.
Wow. So kind of delving deeper into that, you said schools kind of look at the difference between what was actually, published and what was submitted, but is there a difference in, quality versus quantity? Does that come into play? Like if you have, let's say, 2 actual publications versus 20 submitted and 1 publication, like what do you guys think about that?
I mean, those are averages for a reason. They take people who have 30 pubs, they take people who have 1. If you're doing basic science research, people know that takes a longer time. It's going to be slower. That being said, if you have 1 basic science research versus 10 case reports, they're going to look at that. I mean, they're not going to say, oh, your case reports are better than 1, but they're also not going to say, these case reports don't mean as much. I mean, that's a lot of hustle to do 10 case reports. So I think at the end of the day, it's about the connections that you're making with the people who you're researching with, because one basic research project with a great mentor, with a great letter, that could be the difference between matching and not matching. So I think that's all just barometer. It's all just a peek at what the competition's doing, but you're in your own lane and, I know people who match with no case reports. So, it's all about what you can do.
Word. Thank you for that. I had a question. Do you have anything, Lily, before I ask this question?
No, go ahead.
Okay, sure. So obviously you all are very high achieving, underrepresented minorities, right? In the field. And of course, there's many things that, there's situations that underrepresented minorities kind of go through, higher stresses, increased level of things that just stress you out and, pretty much more challenges. Going through the process of residency applications and interviews and even medical school, is there anything that you guys noticed as URMs that were specific struggles to you, and how did you overcome that and get to where you are now, kind of specifically because you were underrepresented?
That's a heavy one.
You have to work twice as hard as everybody else. Whether it's true or not, I felt that pressure. And so I felt every time I showed up, I had to show up 100%. And especially on interview day or on way rotation, I felt like I always had to look good. I had to be present. I always had to pay attention to my facial features because I have a resting face that's not that pleasant, but I'm very friendly. And so I felt like and I don't know if that was really true or if that was the weight I put on myself or that we carry as underrepresented people. But that was the mentality that I had, that anything that I put out there was going to be my best. And whatever institution deserved that or that I wanted to go to it, that's who will be blessed to have me. I feel like doing this route, you really have to have confidence and have a lot of grit to do it. And I know we're like our biggest critic. And I think we have to dispel that when you go through this route and start to be your biggest cheerleader and work your hardest and know that you deserve a spot and that there is room for you at the table. I felt like that was a big part of doing this as an underrepresented minority, was first believing in myself, knowing that I was competent and I was deserving, and always telling myself that and going after it like it was my last day, like I had no other choice. And that helped me along the process. And it helped build my confidence to stop looking to the left, stop looking to the right, look at my path and know that I'm going to make it. And so really having that strong mentality to push you and push the others along the route. Don't be overcome with competitiveness with the person next to you. Make friends. These are going to be your future colleagues, your future co-interns. And so encourage and motivate each other along the way. It's space for all y'all at the table. I know, as Black people and underrepresented minorities, we feel like, oh, they're only looking for one of us. Don't have that attitude. Don't have that. Be your biggest cheerleader. Be the cheerleader for the person next to you, and believe in yourself. So that's helped me keep going when all the negativity came up. Oh, dermatology is so competitive, and oh, that's what you want to do with your medical degree, because you're going to hear all kinds of things. But you have to know that this is where my true interest is. This is where my passion is, and I can do it. That's my 3 4 5 cents.
That's about $5.
Amanda, you want to take it?
Sure. I mean, if we're talking about being an underrepresented minority in medicine, I mean, I can tell you, like, I'm sure anybody else on this panel can tell you, we've had moments where we've felt our presence was questioned, and you're not really sure, you're not quite why, but you're not quite sure why, but you have a feeling on why your presence is being questioned. But if we're talking specifically about just going into dermatology, I kind of, like Maureen has already stated, I felt the same way, where people, if I told them what I was interested in going to, there was always something someone had to say.
Yeah.
Every time. I remember an attending, oddly enough, she was an OB-GYN attending, was like, well, I was going to go into dermatology, and then I decided that I didn't want to do pathology all day. And I was like,
Right.
okay.
Good for you.
I was just like, that is so bizarre. Why are you telling me this right now? And then, like, I somehow changed the subject and just, like, avoided being alone with her, so she wouldn't talk to me about how much she hated pathology. But there's always some kind of statement people have on why dermatology, why this or why that. But I think the reality is, and there's this statistic that's been quoted several times, but roughly 3% of this country's dermatologists identify as Black or African American. That is tiny. That is inappropriately tiny when you think about the percentage of Black people in this country. And so I think that's a huge motivator for a lot of people on why we feel like we are necessary in this field. So there was no one that was going to make me feel like I didn't belong. You guys need me here. You need people like us here, because you don't have enough people to take care of the population that feels like you don't represent them. They don't feel like they're understood by you. They don't feel like you understand our hair, our skin, whatever the case may be, our cultural, practices. And so there was no one that was going to make me feel like I didn't belong in this field, and no one has since. But it's always helpful to have mentors, and this goes back to mentorship, and your friends around you that are also going to the same field as you, to uplift each other. I mean, I probably wouldn't have really considered dermatology as a field. Like I said, I didn't come in knowing that's what I wanted to do, if it were not for the amazing Black women around me who were in dermatology. And I was like, I look like you look like me, I can do this. And that's always a great thing to have.
Excellent.
Definitely. I feel like as an underrepresented minority too, when you think of, because getting to dermatology, there's so many levels, and one of them is your third year, your clinical year. It's so important. It's constantly referenced. Your MSPE letter is a dean's letter that's like every comment you ever got on an evaluation, and it's highly scrutinized, because it tells the programs, how is it like to work with you. And as underrepresented minorities, like Maureen alluded to, we're just not given the benefit of the doubt. You can come in and, without a smile on your face, and your evaluation might say, oh, they're disinterested. It's like, hey, wait a minute, that's not what that means. Or, if you are, giving a presentation or wanting to push back on, on a lab, or, a treatment for your patient, or anything like that, oh, you're controversial, or you're, so it's just, you got to be aware that we're not given the benefit of the doubt in a lot of situations. So set yourself up knowing that. So I don't know if it's as simple as, everybody's coming in late, so you can too. No, you need to be early. Oh, this student is asking to leave. Can I too? Nope, you need to stay right there, because the rules do not apply equally. They're not the same. And that's just one thing that I really, I've experienced that firsthand, and I feel like that's part of my testimony. Regardless, what's for you is for you. And, God has matched me into dermatology, regardless of what anyone has tried to stop my destiny. But being said, just be aware that everybody is not your friend. And, just be aware of that, and go into every situation covering yourself. as underrepresented minorities, we have to do that. And I think to not mention that would be a disservice. So especially in these subjective situations, thank God the exams are multiple choice, because can't nobody tell you you don't know your stuff, but evaluations can be so subjective. You can do everything right and still not honor, where your counterpart did less than you and was walking away with the honor. So don't take it personally. Know that you don't have to honor everything, and to get into dermatology, you do your best, and people can read through the lines too. So, and the other thing is, all programs are not created equally. All these dermatology programs do not value diversity the same. And we see it by where we were invited and where many of us were not invited. So I say that to say, you want to go where you're supported and where you'll thrive. So if a program don't want you, you probably didn't want to be there anyway.
I agree.
Excellent.
There are a few questions in the chat. Do you guys have any family members already in medicine? And if so, did you feel like that helped?
I did not. I'm the first college graduate and doctor in my family. So
Hey.
Congratulations. That's huge. That's major.
Yes.
So on my mom's side, I'm the first doctor in my family. You guys know how mama and daddy sides go. But I did have an aunt on my dad's side who is a physician and really motivated and inspired me. And, just having that support from family is huge. Like I didn't know what imposter syndrome was. I'm like, what is imposter syndrome? I belong here. I should have been here. What are you talking about? So I think just having that just in your DNA, sort of just knowing that you can do it, is so important. And also just seeing how doctors live and work, and knowing the different opportunities that come with different specialties. So having a doctor in your family, I think it helps. But if you don't have a doctor in your family, we did it. You don't need it.
Yeah.
Word.
Oh, I'll just say that I agree with what you both said. I have like extended family members that are physicians, like, cousins, husbands, and some aunt or some uncle or something like that, but no one in my immediate family. My father's a respiratory therapist and my mother's a phlebotomist. So medicine in my family, yeah, absolutely. Doctors in my family, no. But as Zoe has said, and as Maureen has said, with the amount of mentorship, as we've told you over and over again, the theme of this conversation is mentorship, you'll still get there. Mm-hmm. So I don't really think it broke me, or it necessarily would have helped me otherwise. I think in some situations it can. I always found it interesting to see which of my classmates had doctors that actually worked at the school as well, and how well they were doing. I always found that a little interesting. I mean, I won't name names at this point, but I think in some cases it can help people, but in our cases, didn't. So,
but what I like to think too, because you'll see it on the trail, there's people, their parents were dermatologists, their parents did their residency at the program you're interviewing at. It's just like, it's so intimidating. But I also like to tell myself, do you know where I would be if my mama was a dermatologist? I'm just saying. So you have to take confidence in that despite other people having all the privilege in the world with the golden spoons and what have you, y'all are the same spot going for the same position. There. Let's go. Let's go. So.
Nice. So let's just switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about residency, right? Applications. How many schools do you apply to, if you feel comfortable mentioning? And maybe some what's a derm interview like? Maybe some do's and don'ts as well about the interview process. Just have fun.
Don't be late.
Personal experience, Zoe.
If you're not 5 minutes early, you late?
Yeah. Don't be late. It was this one time Maureen was there.
Y'all trying to say what it was?
Huh?
Where was it?
This was in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
Amazing program, great faculty, but make sure you get, where you're gonna park, make sure you do a little a run through. Thank goodness both the program director and the chair were Black, and it wasn't too noticeable because there was a big room, but just make sure, That being said, I did have 20 interviews, so odds are one out of 20 interviews is not going to go your way. That was the one, but just give yourself that opportunity to just remind yourself of things, little things go awry, and don't let it trip you up. I mean, it was a great interview day, but don't be late.
Yeah, because you're all flustered now and you're all just stressed, sweating from running, all that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. And then, I mean,
Yeah.
being a Black woman too, it's like, really? Don't be late.
In dermatology, I think it is very commonplace for applicants to apply very widespread and mostly all of the programs, even though that's not needed, but a lot of people do it just to cover, their bases. And it's a total of what, about 136 dermatology residencies? Do y'all know the number?
That sounds right.
Okay.
Including the new DO programs, that sounds right.
And did you all apply to over 100 places just to give people a range?
I didn't, just because I couldn't afford it, and I looked at some programs and knew I couldn't spend 3 years there. I think I ended up being at like 75, 79 maybe, or something like that.
And how much did these all cost?
You can budget a couple thousand just for the application alone.
Just to hit send.
Yeah, I think if you're applying to like 100 plus, it's gonna be like what, 3,000-4,000?
Of 2,000 if you apply to at least 60 and your prelims also, and probably a maximum of 4,000 if you apply very widespread. As in dermatology, you have to pay for your preliminary year, so you don't go directly into dermatology. You do 1 year of internal medicine or like a of different specialties called transitional year, and so you have to apply to those programs in addition to applying for your dermatology residency, which is called an advanced position. So you're looking at between 2 to 4K, and that's if you apply to few programs or multiple. You're gonna
We just did a meet the match at our school, and I would say about everybody there did over 100 programs. I think if you have the means to do that, a lot of people do. That wasn't my situation. That being said, a lot of people applied to DO programs and didn't get interviews. So I don't know how that's going to change in the next few years, but if you are looking to save money, I would personally say, you can take the DO programs off your list because they're likely not going to interview MD candidates. That's a way to whittle it down.
Yeah, and states that you just don't want to go to. You don't know nobody in Montana. So it's just like that can be a way to eliminate, so you don't apply to all of them.
But that being said, the programs like Utah are wanting that diversity because they've got a huge immigration population coming from different places in Africa and the Caribbean and things like that. So do your homework a little bit and go to apply to programs that are putting their money where their mouth is and going to diversity awareness stuff. I would say though, again, dermatology is very regional too. So at our school in Michigan, no one got an interview in Texas, period. So
wow.
certain states are just like that. California is very, very hard to break into Cali. So I know some people who knew they just cut those off because they didn't want to donate to their fund.
Versus me, I applied to almost all of them. I just said, I don't know who's looking for me. And
It's an investment.
there's a lot of places that I didn't know was checking for me. So looking back, I would have loved to spend more money, but I knew that I was willing to go wherever to train in dermatology and to become one. But I think it would be wise to narrow down, but still, like Zoe said, some places that you don't think of are looking for representation and to have you have a seat at the table. So it's kind of a personal choice.
And don't forget, you're gonna have to pay for your flights, your hotels, your Airbnb,
I was gonna say,
your Lyfts, your Uber, your food.
So what I did for my 4th year, my medical school is an hour away from home. And so I moved out of where my medical school was back home with family. So that saved like a couple thousand for me to help cover the cost. And I know a lot of other 4th year medical students do that, since 4th year, you don't have that many clinical rotations that you have to be physically present for. So that can be a good way to save money, because what is rent, 800 plus? So times
800, that's nice.
And so I calculated how much I spent on the interview trail, just to give you just candid, true number. So I went on 17 interviews and I spent $4,400. That's
Total.
just the interviews, not
Oh,
including the
that's-
application.
Oh, ooh.
So that's flights, hotels, Ubers, food. Well, no, I didn't include food because you gotta eat anyway.
Oh,
$4,400. I was very meticulous and and calculating.
Tracking. Yeah, budgeting. Wow.
Because I was curious. I'm like, how much
It's
is
an
this
investment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thankfully, all of that stuff is reimbursable. So keep your receipts, you know, your
Oh.
Lyft rides, all of that. You can get reimbursed from your financial aid office. So I got a reimbursement. I think it was almost around $8,000, $9,000 because I included food too. I gotta eat. I need my
To be
money
clear,
back.
reimbursement?
That's a loan, right?
No.
That's a loan reimbursement. A loan, not a.
It's a loan reimbursement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, just like a loan.
It's a
It's a
loan. It's like an
loan.
increase in your loan.
Oh, okay, girl.
Yeah, so you
It's not
take
free
all your
money.
receipts, you take all your receipts and everything,
Yeah,
and you send it to
yeah.
your financial aid office, and that cost that increases your cost of attendance. It all goes towards that. So
Okay.
you know, but also shout out to the medicine mug because I started my own business, and
Yeah,
that
yeah,
definitely
talk about
helped.
that. Yeah.
That definitely helped with the application process. So I appreciate all the support that I got from everybody in the community on that too.
Yeah,
What
we'll
was
put a link for that in the description.
Okay, sounds good.
Talk a little bit about your experience with Shark Tank and everything.
So I auditioned for Shark Tank, and due to confidentiality, that's all I can say about that.
Got
So,
you.
Okay.
Take note, guys. When it comes out, I don't know when the episode, or you can't talk more about that, but we'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye out.
sounds
Okay.
good.
Yeah. Real quick, can you guys mention where you're going for your transitional years or prelim years or anything, or if you're advanced?
Well, I'm staying near home in Houston, and it's a new program that opened up. It'll be a community program with Houston HCA Healthcare. So that's a
Okay.
And then I'm going back Midwest toward home. So I'll be at Loyola University Medical Center, and then going to Vanderbilt afterward.
Vandy. I'll be with you at Vanderbilt as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you there.
See you there, 2021.
And I'll be in Detroit on the front lines of COVID-19. Last night, the nurses just walked out of the hospital that I am supposed to be at. So we're hoping things settle down a little bit before I get there. But just to talk a little bit about that, there's a transitional year, and then there's your preliminary year.
Thank you.
So a prelim year, it's about 9 months of medicine. They look at you the same way as if you were a first-year internal medicine resident. Then there's your transitional year, depending, it can be anywhere from 3 to 5 months of wards on the floors, internal medicine. Then the rest is rounded out with electives, generally of your choosing. Some programs choose for you, but you know, it's a lot more outpatient. You can even do a dermatology or a research month. Yeah. So I stress everybody to, you know, always apply to prelims, and you want to tell people you're going to do prelim no matter what, because they want a well-rounded applicant. Now, what you decide to rank is on you. But you know, you always want to portray that you are getting the strongest foundation in medicine as you can. And to say this, not everybody matches their first time. You know, it's an unfortunate reality. But if you have to reapply again, going into a preliminary year says a lot about you as an applicant. You have a lot to speak to in that sort of experience. Trying to reapply as a transitional year, have been people who've been successful at it, but I've been told that you're not taken as a serious applicant. So, you know, you always want to have a prelim in your back pocket in case you need it.
That is
excellent advice.
Your rank list for dermatology, you can rank preliminary programs, and I would highly recommend ranking some prelims at the end, because if you don't match, you would prefer to end up at a prelim, like Zoe said.
Yeah. Great. Just
and there's some people, they end up going into PGY2 positions. So it's like they never matched at all. You know, they do their PGY1 and then they get to start still. So, you know, always protect yourself.
Excellent advice. Yeah. And so we're just going to clear it up. So PGY postgraduate year, that's like your residency years, right? PGY1 is your first year of residency, PGY2, et cetera. And then also clear up what Maureen said about the rank list. So essentially you can rank all your derm programs, but then also you can just enter a prelim or in transition or internal medicine program in addition to those derm programs in case, right? At the very end, in case all those derms fall through. Usually with these specialties where you have to do a transition years, they kind of, each actual specialty program, you pair it with a list of these transition or prelim programs, but you can do a whole separate transition year on that list as well. So I don't know things up. Okay, good. Yeah. Any other questions or anything? Lily?
I guess I could just ask well, first of all, I don't know if you guys talk about the lifestyle. I know you're not practicing yet, but what have you heard about the lifestyle? What is,
Heard fabulous things about the lifestyle, darling.
Oh, because someone asked about the burnout rate and whether that's faster than other specialties, which I haven't personally heard of, but I don't know if you guys can speak to burnout rate and like lifestyle in dermatology.
The last I read, we have like the lowest rates of burnout with like other fields like pathology, I think is also close, and then psychiatry. So we're like definitely the lowest rates of burnout. So that says a lot about the lifestyle.
Yeah, it's one of the happiest specialties, period. You can really design it. I mean, it depends on each job, but full-time at an academic institution is still like 3 days a week. You get protected academic time. I know residents who, especially if you're willing to go to the Midwest, you come out of residency with a $400,000, $500,000 job offer. And that's just fresh out of residency, a 3-year residency. You know, you're not getting that opportunity in a lot of different specialties, but the salary is great. The time is great. And it's so flexible. It's what you want to make it. So.
Love it. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. About an hour mark here, especially on short notice. Wish you all the best with all your future endeavors. And also, if you guys want to plug anything like your socials or any events coming up, anything else at all you want to plug? Nobody? Okay.
Well, home. It's super cute.
Hey, the medicine mug. If you want, just a little inspiration coffee mug. Oh, I don't even have one right here. But it's all good. You go online at the medicine mug. But also, if you want to know more, I started a Derm Squad group me. It's just a bunch of us on there, about 60 and growing right now. People interested in dermatology. DM me. I'm at Zoe Indigo. Love to add you to the group. And everyone has different experience, so you can't just take our word for it. You have to ask yourself, ask for others, and see for yourself. So
absolutely,
true. Yeah. Good.
Definitely, people reaching out to me. I'm friendly. I've opened my journey, my experience. I think we all have something great to offer. So feel free to reach out to us.
Absolutely.
Excellent. On the flyer, I know everyone joining with us live on the chat. On the flyers, their Instagram @ are all on there. If you guys want to also just say it real quick, we'll put it on the descriptions too. But everyone go around and just say what your Instagram is if you don't mind.
Yeah. At Amanda Onalaja. That's ONALAJA.
I'm at Riri Love Forever, and Riri is RERE. Love Forever, all spelled out, all letters.
Okay.
And I'm at Zoe Indigo, ZOE Indigo like the color, and also at the medicine mug. Holla.
Great. Thank you all so much. And before we leave, I just want to ask everyone joining us on the live, if you don't mind, just write down in the chat, how did you find out about this video? Whether it was through Instagram or YouTube or anything, just let us know. It helps us out with future marketing publicity. So
thank you, Nelson and Lily, for this platform.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I wanted to shout out Kayla, who actually connected me to all of you guys. She follows you guys on Instagram, but yeah, this would not have happened without Kayla. So shout out to
Kayla.
Shout out to Kayla.
Hey.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Stay safe out there, okay?
Thanks. You too,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, guys.